Man? Hey,
How you
dude.
been?
I'm good. How are you?
I'll give myself a B plus.
Well, that's not so bad.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I'll take a B plus.
Yeah. How come it sounds so clear?
I don't know. I wish I could make that happen every time. There's just
I
no
know. It
guarantees.
sounds really good. That's awesome. Let me close up some of these things I was working on. Hold on, let me close your face.
There's a pretty good chance we're gonna have some background noises today because
Why is
I've
that?
got a house full of kids and I've told them what I'm doing, but that does not mean they'll be quiet. So
That was a cough slash.
yeah, slash laugh. That was good.
Yeah. What's
Clap.
okay? I can't do. I'm so focused on one thing. I can't multitask.
No, I've
Not
heard
really.
that nobody actually can. That's a lie.
That's cool. I think
I don't know if
that
I don't know if
that
that's
makes
true, but that's
that makes me feel a little better about myself.
yeah. See, there you go.
Yeah.
I do that once in a while.
You gift of encouragement.
Yeah, how about
Okay.
that?
Boom.
Here's the encouragement. You're terrible at something everybody else is terrible at.
Yeah. That's it. And there's strength in that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you turn your camera off, huh?
Just to guarantee that we keep it nice and clear. Is that working?
Bada bing, bada boom. I love it.
Hey, I was at a store yesterday. I saw a $6 video camera for a computer. So let's get that solved.
I don't want it. No, you don't want to see me anyway, right?
I do. I think it would go better. I think we have better rapport when we can see how the other person is reacting to stuff.
$6.
Yeah, can you believe that?
$6. All right, I'll do.
It probably wouldn't even be that good a camera, but I'm just saying you should definitely go back on Amazon and retake a peek at it.
Okay, I'll look around.
Yeah, find one of those things.
Okay. How do they plug it? I have a headphone jack and a microphone jack. Do the cameras just do the USB?
Yeah, they got to use the USB. You have a microphone jack?
Yeah.
Is it like the headphone jack?
Yeah, it looks exactly like it, and I got the microphone plugged into it.
That's
nice.
Wow. There you go. Yeah, I didn't know that was the thing. That's cool.
That is cool. All right, we're gonna do this. It's your turn, right?
It's my turn. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to. That was not high energy at all. I don't know. I don't know if you got that. Let's try that again. All right, everybody. Welcome to Five Best. This is Greg, and I'm with my buddy Jason. Jason's in Muskegon, Michigan. Hey, Jason. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and this is episode 22 of a little podcast we call Five Best. It's pretty simple, really. We go through the 5 best things from the last week, and we just kind of share and talk about that. And as Jason mentioned last week, it's an exercise in our friendship, and we enjoy doing it, and we hope you enjoy listening to it. If you do enjoy listening to it, please subscribe and rate it. Apparently, rating is also a big deal. Jason, I didn't know that until. Yeah. So if you listen to this, if you listen to this on iTunes, and you're like, man, this is the best podcast I ever heard. Write that down on iTunes and hit submit or whatever, and then we get rated with that, and that gives us like more stars, and that makes it easier to find. So rating and subscribing are key, so do both of those things. So it's the way this works is we share our 5 best things from the week in no particular order, so that's kind of a fun one. My first one is really kind of lame, but it made me laugh for an entire day just about. So the background to this is that it's like 180 degrees in Texas, and it's really, really crazy hot right now. And that just doesn't seem to be going away, which is what you sort of expect for July and August in San Antonio. So you can't even really complain too much about it. But my brother sent me a meme yesterday, one of those pictures online with words on it, and it was a picture of Frodo from Lord of the Rings, and it said, "I'm not saying it's hot out, but 2 hobbits just threw a ring in my backyard." So it's a nerdy, goofy Lord of the Rings joke, but it had me laughing all day yesterday. And then that kind of got me thinking, like, I do genuinely enjoy memes for the most part. Like as a form of communication, they make me laugh a lot. So I don't know.
What's a meme?
It's like maybe I'm saying it wrong. I think it's meme though, but it's a picture. So sometimes you see a picture of the little kid with like the the clenched arm, like he's excited because he just did something, and then there's like a words written on it. So in this case, it was a picture of Frodo, and then the words were written on it. But they're all over. You've seen them. I'm trying to think of another one that is famous that you would have seen. They did them a lot with Game of Thrones, like Winter is Coming.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
they would change winter to something else, right? Like,
Is it like Calvin and Hobbesy? You know, that kind of.
no, not really. It's just like a picture, and like a semi-recognizable picture, and then there's a couple of lines that make you laugh. And they do it like, there's been some that I've seen that are funny that are like old-timey looking ladies with like funny lines about drinking alcohol or being a bad parent or whatever. Those always make me laugh too. Yeah, there's a bunch of them, but this one in particular was it struck me as really funny yesterday. So anyway, that's what I got. What do you got?
That's kind of.
You don't know what a meme is? Come on, man.
I don't know. Is it an emoji?
No.
I'll have to look it up after this. A
no,
meme?
this is ridiculous. Come
That's
on,
crazy that you don't know what a meme is, Jason.
It's a picture with words on it. That's all. But it's just like it's unique to the internet.
Huh.
Like they didn't really exist
I'll do a little research. I'll look into
Jeez. Well, there's a chance our listeners will know what I'm talking about.
There is a chance, but that's the suckiest first one I think I've heard in a long time.
All right, dude. All right.
Not to put you down, but
no, that was putting me down though. With all due respect.
With all due respect, that sucked. Okay.
That was the worst one.
My number one is
Jeez, man.
I got a new nephew. My nephew was born on last Friday, whatever the date was, July 22nd. Yeah. His name is Bryce.
That's awesome.
Bryce Hansen. He came out like 9 pounds, some ounces. It was just both my wife and her sister, my sister-in-law, Maddie, they do not handle pregnancy very well. You know, like some people love pregnancy. Yeah. They do not. That's the opposite end of the spectrum. And they just had hard pregnancies. And this one was not an exception. Bryce was the contractions started like 2 or 3 months ago. She kept we went down there. She lives down in Kalamazoo. We went down there several weekends. Just maybe it was coming, maybe he wasn't coming, you know. But then he showed up, and he showed up last Friday, and we're fired up that he's a healthy boy. He's got a lot of hair. He kind of looks like a chow chow. You know, he has like too much flesh. You know, like a lot of wrinkles. He's cute. I don't know where you stand on the issue, the pressing issue of fat baby versus skinny baby. But I like fat babies. So
I think fat babies all the time.
It's crazy because I had one of each. Zeke was kind of a skinny baby. And he's cute in his own way, but Elsie was pudgy. She was a pudgy little lady. But anyway, Bryce, welcome. And it's just amazing. You know, every time you come in contact with it, you can't walk away not in awe. You know, just the birthing process. You know, just the new life. It's gross,
man.
It's a gross thing,
right?
And there's plenty of comedy bits about that, but it's bigger than life, you know. It's because life, it's a phenomenal deal. Like I was saying, because Friday Bryce showed up, and then Saturday it's my brother-in-law's birthday, the new
cool.
father, and so I was hanging out with him, and it was kind of like hanging out with somebody that had just been in front of the Grand Canyon, or like just been in front of like Seventh Wonder. I don't know what are it's just you can't walk away unchanged.
That's
you
right.
know, it's new life. There was not this boy Bryce in this world, you know, before, and now there is, and it's magnificent. It's beautiful. It's like it's got its own little, you know, like it brought me back to when my kids were born, and you can't help but worship God. It's so big you can't ignore it kind of feeling or just event, you know. It's crazy, you know, like cool. It's made my 5 best because it dwarfs probably all other 5 bests of.
Yeah, and you think it's better than memes?
For one thing, I know what a baby is, and I don't know what a min is. But so that we kick it off with I'm an uncle a fourth time over. With,
That's awesome.
So that's cool.
That's super cool, man. I'm really pumped for you and for them and for Bryce. That's awesome.
Yeah, and plus it's just an opportunity to just exhale. It's such a dangerous thing.
We kind of forget how dangerous, right?
Yeah, the baby could die, the mother could die. It's just you can try to sanitize it, but it's crazy. It's just out of this world crazy. It's just
when you think about in the history of humans, the number of people that happened a lot. It was really, really common to die in childbirth.
Yeah,
and it's way less common now, which is cool.
All right, hit me with your
great, man. See now my second one sounds dumb too.
No, it's gonna be rule. Yeah, I got some dumb ones coming.
I'm sure of that. Okay,
yeah,
here we go. So when I was in college, I ran across this. Have you ever? Oh boy, this is gonna go poorly. Have you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I've never read it, but I've watched the movie.
So you know of it?
Yes.
All right. Well, the guy who wrote that book wrote a detective series.
Okay.
Of 2 books called. The character in the detective series is Dirk Gently. Dirk Gently. And so Dirk Gently, what the first book is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. And the second one is Dirk Gently and the Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. They're 2 of my favorite books ever. I think that's fantastic. They're just fun to read. They're hilarious. They've got a bunch of random philosophy jokes layered throughout them. And
what's the first one again? Dirk Gently and what?
Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
Okay.
And so his theory, he's this sort of trendy postmodern philosopher detective who's convinced that everything's connected, right? So that in a bunch of really crazy ways, everything's connected. So if he takes a trip to Jamaica while he's looking for your lost cat, and then finds your cat, then it was obvious that he was supposed to take that trip to Jamaica so he can charge you extra for your finding your there's a brilliant, one of the best opening sequences of any book ever is in Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. It takes the first part of the book. There's some time travel and some weird stuff. It gets confusing, but at the very beginning of the book, there's this monk who's riding a horse. But the monk is a robot, and in the future, humanity decides that believing things is too hard. So we create something to believe things for us. Yeah. So we create these monks that will believe stuff for us. And then this monk, we wanted to make them look regal and important, so we put them on horses. So it's kind of this goofy, kind of funny premise or whatever. But I bring all of that up because they're making a TV show out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, so in the fall, BBC America is going to have a Dirk Gently show. So I'm really excited. And the aforementioned Elijah Wood is also in that one.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I think it's they released all the trailers and stuff and all that, and it looks like it could be pretty good. So fingers crossed. I'm really excited. I didn't know anybody else ever read these books, so I'm pumped that somebody else read them and liked them enough to make a TV show out of it.
That's golden. And I'm about to ditch because I've been trying to read, what's that one book about a bird? Remember, it made one of my 5 bests or something, I think.
It might have.
I want to say Mockingbird or Blue Herring or Red Herring. No.
Goldfinch?
Goldfinch. There it is. There it is.
Wow.
I'm about to ditch it, because
really?
I usually get my novel recommendations from a guy named TJ Stafford because he reads novels like crazy. Yeah. And this is the first one that I've not really cranking through. In fact, I kind of put it down and I read through the Bucky F. and Dent one.
Yeah. That one did come up on the 5 bests.
Yeah, that one did. And now I'm listening to Grateful Dead. I wasn't really into the Grateful Dead, but one of the characters, anyway, that's up 5 best.
Yeah.
But you're one of the best openings of a book.
It makes me laugh hysterically.
I love books like that. And it makes me think of a question.
And it's really clever.
Best all-time opening of an album. What do you think it is?
Of an album, huh?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And I'm thinking Where the Streets Have No Name.
Yeah, that one's gonna be tough to beat.
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good opener. What about Proud to Be an American by Lee Greenwood? That's a good opener.
That one hits. That one hits hard.
Emotionally, it's hard to recover from that opening. Man, I'm trying to think, man. That's a good.
We'll come back to it, but another good opener it's weird, but it's Presidents of the United States.
Really?
That? Yeah, I think they
Peaches.
No, they don't open with Peaches. They open about the kitty cat.
Oh boy, I don't know that album at all.
Meow,
so.
meow, 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 meow. And also, it makes me laugh hysterically.
Yeah, same kind of thing.
But
check this one out. You can find this one for pretty inexpensive, I think.
I know. I've been checking things out from the library. You give them 3 weeks, and if it's
from what I can tell on the trailers, the show is not going to be much like that first book. It's going to be more like the second book. But that first book is gold. They're both really great. I enjoy them both immensely. So
excellent. Yeah. My number 2 is Beyonce's Lemonade. I don't know if you've heard that album yet.
Oh boy, I
know. I checked it out from the library. I took a listen. It's the girl can sing.
Yeah.
Whoever's writing the songs can write, because maybe she's writing some of them too. And there's actually a song about, I think it's called Freedom or something like that. It's with Lamar. It's a Kendrick Lamar guy, and it's a hitter. It's something. I think it comes with, because it's about Jay-Z cheating on her, and it's just emotions around being cheated on and finding strength in the middle of hard times. And there's actually some deep kind of thoughts mingling around in this poppy, it's a pop star album, it's like it's
I know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I was blown away. I was actually blown away by the depth. Actually, the production on the album is ridiculous. It's really good. It's not over the top. It's just perfect. So there's not much to talk about, but I just made my 5 best because I checked it out from the library, popped it in the disc player of my car, just driving around, and I was pleasantly surprised because I had really low expectations. I'm not really a Beyonce fan, and I'm not even that genre. The last time I liked anything that like Beyonce was a part of was when Charlie's Angels, when she was part of Destiny's Child. Oh boy.
So I have a friend who worked with me for the last couple of years named Michael, who absolutely loves Beyonce, like has gone to see her in concert however many times and is convinced that she's like this transcendent figure in the world who will help us all somehow find salvation. But I think that's not overstating it. We'll find out. I'll have Michael listen and he can tell me if I was wrong about that. But man, he's tried and I just can't get into Beyonce. Like
take a listen to Lemonade. Have you had any? Jack White helps her out a little bit, so that's the kind of crossover in my world.
Yeah, I will try. I will try. I mean, I've listened to some of Lemonade. I have not listened to the whole thing, and so I don't know. I cannot get into her, so I don't know why, but I will try.
It brings up a conversation from a while ago when Prince passed away. Is there gonna be somebody that crosses, musical genre kind of boundaries?
Yeah.
And brings everybody onto his or her page. I don't know. Maybe Beyonce's got it. I don't know. But you take a listen. Take a listen to this Lemonade. Just listen to it all the way through and just say, nah, that's junk. Oh, by the way, I watched that the night of.
Yeah.
Right, spot on. Ridiculously good.
Yeah, you like it. Okay, good. I thought you were gonna go with the junk part. I was like, wait a second, I didn't think it was that bad.
No, phenomenal. And I like it when when something's coming.
Yeah.
But you still want to watch it.
Yeah.
I knew that lead character,
Yep.
Jesus from The Big Lebowski, because nobody messing with that. Anyway, John Turturro's character, when I knew that he was going to pick up that kid, because we had seen enough
They
trailers.
set you up for that.
He told me about that stuff, but I still wanted to see how it came about, and they did a masterful job. I really like the show. I'm with you.
I know. I'm excited about it. It's only 3 episodes in, so you're always like, oh, this could go sideways. But I think not. Like, it seems like it's slow though. But
I love that they're taking their time.
The slowness, yeah.
I do too. I think that's going to prevent from missteps.
I think so too, and I think it makes it seem more realistic somehow. Like, it just seems like,
because it makes it feel like more like real time, because that's really how stuff happens.
Right, much slower like that.
And how about that scene when it's all slowly moving, but then they find the knife?
Yeah,
that was ridiculous.
That's crazy. Yeah, that was crazy.
That was a cool scene. Anywho,
so we won't say much more about it because it's so early in that we don't want to ruin it for people if
don't
you haven't watched it. But you should watch it. So.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, so you have Beyonce's Lemonade. Man, I cannot believe that made one of your 5 best. All right.
I gotta. I don't know what I had to do. Go.
You have to be honest, man. You love Beyonce. That's how. Listen.
I'm not really even a Beyonce fan. That album is almost like, I don't know if you remember Orange County Supertones, but.
All right, I just want to go on record and say this is the only podcast ever that has compared these two. But go ahead.
I know, but when that. Whatever their album, they had the breakout album. They had a bunch of albums. Then they were making money. They were making a lot of money, because I happen to know a couple of them. But they were making a lot of money off of merchandise, just because it's edited, because they
were doing cool stuff.
Yeah, they were doing really cool stuff. But they were kind of just playing around until they had that one with Crystal Lewis on it. She sang on it, but it was just so well produced. It was phenomenal. I listened to the earlier stuff and I was like, yeah. And then that album came out and it was like, boom. I don't even remember what the name of that album was, but it's the picture with them all in the front, just standing in a line
I never got into them. I know who they are, but
it's similar to that. Like, I'm not really into the Beyonce, but this album I think it's so well produced. It's so well, I think it has something deeper than even it went out to say in the midst of it.
All right, keep that in mind, because we'll come back to that in a future podcast, because I want to explore what that's about, because there are people in the world who are convinced there's more going on in that stuff, and then there are people in the world who are convinced nothing's actually happening there, and I would like to explore that at some point.
Well, I think we'll put you as judge and jury, and
that sounds right. That sounds right.
That sounds right. We'll come back.
Yeah, finally somebody's going to do that. I've been waiting for that for a long time.
You either say BS or truth. Okay, go.
BS or Beyonce. One of the two. All right.
That'll be called. BS or Beyonce. That'll
be our special podcast.
Yeah.
We'll even get my buddy Michael on for a little while to record a section, and he can give his case. Man, I can't get into it. All right.
Okay.
Okay, I've got, let's see. So while Abby was gone, I had this idea that it'd be fun in our, we basically have 2 living rooms, because whoever owned the house before us converted our garage into a living room.
Mm-hmm.
And so we essentially have 2 living rooms. And when Abby's parents come to stay, we put a bed in the garage, like what used to be the garage, but it's finished off now, which is great. And then they have a place to stay when they visit and all of that, or if we have any other guests. But it makes that room just totally unusable, because there's just this huge bed in the middle of it or whatever.
Yeah.
So while Abby was gone, I talked to my parents and I was like, hey, I think we could put a Murphy bed in there.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah. So
who doesn't want a Murphy bed?
Right. Those are my favorite things. I think they're really, really cool. Anyway,
I've never really encountered one in real life.
Oh, yeah. I have. So the only one I've seen in real life is Travis Wright and Lindsay Wright.
Oh, I love
when they
those guys.
First got married, lived in a small apartment that had a Murphy bed that folded up, and I was like, that was awesome. Yeah, it was really cool. I made one. So my dad and I just found a video online of a guy doing it, and I was like, I think we could do this. And so we spent 3 days making this Murphy bed. It's exhausting. that kind of like it's one of my 5 best because just like it's cool to be done with it and look at it and say, wow, we actually made that. Like that
Yeah.
that like and the amount of like sort of important kind of critical thinking you do and your use of math and all of that, like while you're like, planning stuff out and plotting it out. And it was just a really awesome like 2 or 3 days or 3 or 4 days with my dad, like plotting everything out, like how are we going to get this to work or this to work or this to fit or whatever. And you stumble across these obstacles along the way of like, well, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know this was not going to fit, or what about this, or how do we solve this? And I love the problem solving stuff. That's like my favorite. So like, but the easiest problem solving is just don't build a Murphy bed. But once
let's just cut to the chase right
here. But once you're in it, then you have to do it. And so then there's other obstacles that come up that you have to figure out and solve and whatever. And it is just like, it was so tiring and it was so exhausting, but it's so cool to have it done. And it was so fun to have it for when Abby and the boys got back from their mission trip and to like show it to them and have them be surprised and all of that. And then just to work with my parents for a few days on that kind of project was it's something my dad's much, 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 much better at than I am. And so it's cool to kind of to be in a spot where you have to just kind of concede to him more often than not of like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. What should we do in this spot? It ended up being a really good 3 or 4 days, really exhausting and tiring, and just a much bigger project than I thought it was going to be. But we have a Murphy bed now, so that's super cool.
I gotta come down there and hang out in the Murphy bed. That's ridiculous. That's
awesome.
We
have a Murphy bed for you guys now, so you just come use it.
Up. That's cool. Yeah. Thanks for doing that. I'd never know. Because the Wrights, I just shouted. I love that guy, man. Travis and Lindsay Wright, those guys, you don't get much better than that. Yeah, that's one of them.
You really don't.
It's I'd like that, and they live by you, right?
They do. If you came and saw us, you could see them. They got 2 kids now.
I know. They keep having kids.
Yeah, that happens. Cool.
John Mark McMillan came out with an album a little while back, probably like a couple years ago. Yeah. And Travis just bought it and sent it to me.
That's
just
cool.
For no reason. Like I was just a little shout out. Thanks. I think I wrote him a note. Thanks, but. That's still just sometimes just getting blessed out of the blue is pretty much makes a better day.
It is better.
I think my number 3 is.
Wait, hold on. Is that right?
Yeah,
that was my number 3. Okay.
Yeah. No, that was your number. Is it your number 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're right. But we also should just pause and say, good job making a Murphy bed.
Murphy bed. Yeah. How about that, right?
Because you don't make much. But
no, not much money, not much hardware, not much nothing. Yeah. Noise. I make a lot of noise.
Before I just wanted to give that shout out, just the pause and just recognition. That's pretty cool. Anyway, my number 3, Brewster's Millions. You remember that movie?
I do.
And
I remember the premise of that movie. I don't really remember the movie a lot.
A couple reasons has made my 5 best. One was because we talked about this before, as we get to rediscover old movies that are, borderline appropriate for our kids. I watched it with Zeke and it was just cool. Love what, because the last time I had watched it was probably with my older brother.
Yeah.
Over, like 10, 20 years ago. I don't even know how old that movie is, but it's pretty old.
I haven't seen it since I was a little kid. I know that.
Yeah, so I watched it
30 years ago.
So that's the first part of why it made my 5 best. I just watched it with Zeke and just laughing over the same stuff that my older brother and I, laughed at a long time ago. Now I'm laughing with my son. It's just something special. It's cool. Another reason it made my 5 best is because the premise is this guy, Montgomery Brewster, his uncle, I think it's like his great uncle, has passed away and says, in order to inherit the $300 million I got, you have to spend $30 million in 30 days, but you can't tell anybody about it. So he's spending all this money, and that'd be way easier today, but this is in the 80s or something like that. So he's having a hard time doing it. But one of the ways that he spends a lot of it is he runs for mayor, but he runs with the premise, vote none of the above. And so he's campaigning for this none of the above, and what it reminded me of is even back in the 80s, politics was a messy, dirty game.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and this election, probably more than any, has sucked me into it. You know, it's somehow, I don't know what it's got, or I don't know why it's done this, but it's really got me in a place where I can't really see the big picture. I think
Oh, yeah.
it's because the dirtiness of the way that the campaigns are running, and everybody's just slinging mud, and I think that's always the case. But more than ever, I've been sucked into the madness, you know, and
Yeah.
just watching this movie and just being reminded of, because he makes a comment, you know, that both the people that are running for mayor currently of New York are just dirty, you know, mobsters and like backstabbers, and so we should vote for none of the above. And so you could
Was
almost,
he was in New York in that movie?
yeah, he's in New York, and so he,
Yeah, in that movie I had him in Chicago in my head. I don't know why. I totally
it
lost
might
my
be in
mind.
Chicago,
I
but
thought he
no,
had
I
a,
think
I thought he wore around a Cubs jersey.
he did. But he's from Hackensack, New Jersey. You remember?
No, that's I only remember him
Yeah,
in a Cubs jersey. That's all I
He's
got.
he for some reason he loves the Cubs, but he's in
New York. Okay.
New York. Oh, it's
Nice.
because they. Anyway, that's a long story. We're getting way too deep into Brewster's
Yeah,
Millions.
I don't know if that's possible.
But the main reason it made my five best is because it was one of those unlocking a door kind of moments of, okay, it's always been messy. And it's interesting because I'm preaching through Ecclesiastes with my congregation, you know, nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new, yeah.
And it's just the reteaching of that concept and the realizing of that. It's kind of set me free. You know, it's like, okay,
nice.
now I'm like, I don't want to be down in the ground floor in the guerrilla warfare. You know, I just want to back up and see the big picture and see, man, this guy's playing messy. This girl's playing messy. This is all just a craziness. It's crazy, but being above is way better than being in the midst, and just having the realization that this has all happened before. It's all going to happen again. They're all playing dirty, but in the big picture, I don't even know if it matters that much, you know, who wins and who loses. But it did, just having that big picture. Now it's the Democratic nomination. And I don't know if you caught this, but it was so cool yesterday when Bernie's brother stood up at the convention and just said, and they have this, you know, like this rubber stamp, like just kind of affirming that people did vote for Bernie. But in the midst of like the rubber stamping, like, hey, you did a good job, Bernie, there was this real genuine moment where his brother stands up and says, man, I nominate my brother, you know, and our parents would be proud. It was just a cool.
That was super cool.
Yeah, it was just, and it was Brewster's Millions set the stage for it. You know, like I think I would have missed it. Anyway, so there's my three.
I like that one. That's really good. Yeah, the bigger picture stuff is so important, right? And and I think you're right about getting sucked into it. I've managed to avoid that in this cycle because I just don't watch anything about it if I can help it. But there's something profoundly significant about the getting sucked in part, because I think that's happening everywhere, and I think social media is making that worse.
Yeah,
I think social media is aiding in that, and there's an element of making you think it's much more important than it actually is.
Yeah,
like that's the other part of it. Like I every year when there's an election, I'm always stunned at like just the amount of passion and energy people have for this.
Yeah.
And the amount of just like passionate, obvious, this is going to change the world and this is super important. I just don't get it. Like I don't, like as I've like you and I we talk about generational differences sometimes, and like I get why my parents' generation spend a lot of time on politics. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't understand why millennials think it'll work. I can't and this might be a Gen X thing where we've just been so jaded by it or whatever, but
yeah.
I like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get why on any level, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, whatever, why we think the government is the answer to anything. Like, I don't like that somehow our engagement in this process is going to make the world different than it is now, good or bad or better or worse or whatever. Like, I don't know how it's any impact, but I don't know.
And your ability, your knack, your gift of not getting sucked into it is it's one of the things I value most about you in our friendship. I really do like that part of you, that you naturally have a like just that funny statement you said a couple of minutes ago. I mean, obviously the best way to problem solve in this case is to not build a Murphy bed. that thought doesn't occur, and isn't mentioned by most. And I think that's one of my favorite things about you. I think that, and that's a cool attribute of yours. I don't mean to turn this into the praise Greg part of the
no, that's our other podcast. Yeah.
I'll insult you in a couple of minutes. Let's bring up that first one again.
Yeah, let's bring up that meme. Yeah.
I do dig that about you. That's a wicked cool, and I think that's a lot. That voice needs to be heard more.
Yeah.
I think that part of the argument.
It needs
to be voiced louder. We hold on a second.
Here's my struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you, like, and I do naturally do it. One of my struggles is I don't know how to have that conversation or to raise those objections or to be standoffish about this stuff without it seeming as though I'm ungrateful for where I live or I hate America and none of that's true, right? Like, I'm genuinely grateful to be from America, and I genuinely appreciate the things in many cases that have happened to allow us to have the sort of freedoms that we have and the ability to do the things that we do and care about the things we care about. All of that's true, but it doesn't mean we have to do that unreflectively or just blindly assume the only way that can happen is if we only do it this way. And for me particularly, it can't be true that we have to just immediately buy into everything that comes at us from our country because it's from our country. Like, as Christians, that just can't be the way we see the world. But I don't know how to do all of that and not be a jerk at the same time. And that's the hard part. I think that's the rub.
Because it's not the beginning of the conversation. You have to be in a conversation in order to raise these.
That's right.
These kind of concerns. It reminds me of when a buddy of mine was trying to make it as a musician, professional musician, and he was talking to a guy from his music label he was about to sign on, and he really wanted to make like Radiohead, like OK Computer type music, and his record label really wanted to make something poppier, just something, just more mainstream. And the record label just said, you have to put out something that everyone's going to be able to listen to in order for you to make enough money to do what you want.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that same predicament. Like, no one's like, the people they're so entrenched they won't listen unless you get in the trenches with them.
That's right.
And that's so damaging. I don't know how.
Yeah, and once you're in those trenches, then I think that's essentially once you hit those trenches, you're conceding enough of the language.
Yeah.
That you can't, I think it becomes really difficult / impossible. Yeah. To really be able to give the Christian critique that needs to be heard and is important for us as Christians to listen to. But yeah,
if anybody has a solution to that dilemma, call us or email us.
Yeah.
All right, go. Give me your number 4. Is that
my number 4 is we talked about this before. Actually, this kind of comes up with your Brewster's Million ones, but going back over things we've watched and enjoyed, and so my boys and I started watching The Office again, way at the beginning of the summer, and or way like even in the spring. I guess it's been a little while, and then we traveled a bunch, so we hadn't watched any, so we came back to it. And this is just a shout out for the final season of The Office. Ooh. It is a much better season than people realized. Like, I know a lot of people stop. Like, I mentioned this to a couple people just in passing this summer, and they're all like, "Yeah, I never even saw the 9th season." I'm like, "What? You gotta like, yeah." After Steve Carell left, I stopped watching, and that's fair. Like, I get why you would have done that at the time, but in hindsight, and I watched it at the time, but I remember thinking, "Oh, that's like, you know, it was more sad than anything else that it was over." But yeah. Rewatching it, like the series takes kind of a turn, and it becomes a lot more about Jim and Pam. It always was, but it's about sort of how they're gonna keep their relationship together or not. And it's still really funny in that last season. It's a much better last season than I remembered it was. So, and it's been fun to watch that with the kids and with the boys, and just laugh at the same kind of stuff and realize what's out there. Like, and it's a much more current show than I realized. Like, that's the other, like, I don't know when I thought it went off the air, but the final season of The Office has a bunch of stuff culturally that we still have, you know, things like YOLO, and some of, like, they do some stuff with apps and emojis, and it's like, for some reason in my head it's like early 2000s, but it really wasn't. It wasn't that far away from where we are now.
Huh. I didn't realize it was that recent too. I really dug. I was a late comer to The Office train, because I had watched the British one, and then I was slow to get into the American one. But then I got into it, and I think it actually, we liked probably the last one. That was the most we liked the show, which is weird, because we were getting into it right as Michael was leaving or whatever. It was a lot more hope than in the last one. I thought, like, it was more a human story. I liked that love. My wife and I, we love those love story parts of The Office.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's a really good one.
So that's on my list. That's on my list. It's a great show. But it's and the last season deserves more attention than it got. That's what I would say.
That's good. That's cool. Yeah. All right. My number 4, a couple nights ago on the 19th, I think, so it was last week sometime. When was it? Yeah, the 19th, last week sometime, on the late night with what's his face? What's his name? Colbert. Anyway, with Colbert, the musicians were nice as, it's NAF. Nice as expletive, you know, whatever, that's the name, and it's this power trio of girls, women, and the singer, the front person, is Jenny Lewis, the girl from Rilo Kiley, or Rilo whatever. Now that Kylo Ren's around, I don't even remember the name. Rilo Kiley. I think it's Rilo Kiley, and then she's also part of Postal Service. You know, remember, she's the girl.
I don't know any of these things you're saying, but keep going.
You know Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie?
Yeah.
Benjamin Gibbard. He did the side project called Postal Service, and it was mailing back and forth music and lyrics with this girl named Jenny Lewis. So she's half of the Postal Service.
Gotcha.
Anyway, she's since come out with some solo stuff, and now her newest project is this power trio with these girls, and it has this, and they all look like 60s hippies, and the artwork looks like, you know, like a 60s revolution band, and she has really good harmonies. Like, she knows music. She writes really good, writes really well, and the music is phenomenal. She did this really good, solid pop, cool song, but then right at the end, she just bled straight into just a couple seconds of this little jam, and she was repeating over and over, "I don't want to be afraid. Put your guns away. I don't want to be afraid. Put your guns away." And with just like this 60s revolution music vibe with a little techno mixed in, and the whole audience just starts repeating. And it's interesting how quickly music can be a doorway into something more. Like, it was more than a musical performance, less than like a worship experience, but like a lament. It transformed this just night show into, man, how do we get in such a horrible predicament?
Yeah.
I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't put your guns away. It was just I was moved. It was cool. And so yeah, look it up on YouTube. It's NAF,
on Colbert.
On Colbert, yeah.
Nice.
And wait to the end because she does a song pretty good. Give it a B+. But just this little I don't want to be afraid. Put your guns away. And how quickly the audience began chiming in. I don't think she even invited it. It lent itself to it. And
that's cool.
It was good. Give me a little hope.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
Yeah.
I like those little slivers of hope, right?
Yeah, me too.
And when you find them in places you're not expecting, especially, it's always
like a craisin in your salad, If you like dried fruit in your salad.
Yeah, if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. All right. So the gospel reading for this week is Luke 12, and it's the passage where Jesus is talking about this guy comes to Jesus and says, "Hey, my brother doesn't want to split the inheritance with me. Can you kind of rule in my favor?"
Yeah.
And Jesus says, I'm not going to judge between the two of you. He goes, but I can tell you this story. And there's this guy who was a farmer, and he grew a ton of crops, and he outgrew his barn. So he decided to put it all into a bigger barn, and he sat down and he said, "Eat, drink, and be merry." And then the next line is, "You fool, because tomorrow you die." And so it's this story where Jesus is talking about coveting, and it's just this fascinating, like, even where it is in Luke is kind of strange. Like, it seems to not really fit exactly. Like, it just seemed like Luke's like, well, I gotta share this story somewhere, and yeah. I mean, he's got there's some other money stuff, but it seems to be like this pattern of these random stories for a little bit. But and then that one is paired with this Colossians 3 reading where Paul goes through this list of things that are terrible, that are wickedness and have brought wrath on us and all this kind of stuff. And so, but in the middle of that list, Paul says coveting, and then he says coveting, which is idolatry. And I just like the phrasing of it and the pairing of it with that gospel story about coveting. The response Jesus has when the guy says, can you sort of judge in my favor? And Jesus says, I'm not going to judge between you. It's a weird response, because the response from Jesus is sort of, I'm not a judge or an arbiter. Like, I'm not somebody who can make these decisions, which is in a certain way radically untrue, right? Like, that is who Jesus is. But when you hear it in the context of the story, you realize Jesus is saying, I'm not going to choose whose greed is better. And I think that's the sort of the haunting / exciting part of these two stories is I'm not going to tell you which idolatry is better than the other idolatry. And it's like, I think there's a convicting part of that, which is my coveting is not better than somebody else's coveting. My idolatry is not better than somebody else's idolatry. And that sort of leveling off of idolatry and coveting, and then living in a culture that demands that we covet is, man, it's just, there's so much sort of floating around in that. And I think, and especially I think to me, especially as we spend the last 2 weeks with these political parties having their conventions and showing us what they really covet, right? It's not always straight wealth. A lot of times it's power and control, right? But it's still coveting. It's still idolatry, and it's like if you're a preacher and you live and you want to preach, then the chance to speak out against those kinds of powers, making their coveting really obvious, and then being given these readings, it's like, oh, good. like this like, you know, like there's it's like there's just moments you're glad you get to preach, you know, and like this is one for me of like, okay, good, I'm glad I get a chance to, like, I don't have to just watch these powers and not do anything about it. Like at the very least, I can turn back to the gospel and say, no, this is Jesus isn't going to choose between these two types of greed, right?
Yeah.
These two different ways of being greedy, or maybe the same way of being greedy in two different parties. Like he's not going to judge between those. They're both greedy. They're both idolatrous. And then I think that's I don't know. I've been struggling with a little bit of the lesser of two evils language around voting for people.
Yeah.
Because there's no lesser. Like,
yeah.
They're just evil. Like I don't know that there's another way to describe that. Like it's whether or not there are kind of evil. And I don't know that there's something inherently just broken about that.
And Jesus is really kind of speaking against that type of thinking, you know?
Yeah, he's saying like, he's not picking the lesser of the two evils between these brothers. He's saying, I'm not going to choose between your greed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, some of those parables, it makes me wonder if Jesus actually experienced some, like, I wonder if he pulled from real life. It's kind of way out there and it's loosely related to the text, but a lot of times when Jesus snaps into parables that are so close to reality, a lot of times I wonder if we're gonna. I don't think it makes a difference, but I wonder if we're gonna run into those people in heaven. Like, you remember that time Jesus talking about the brothers and they knew the barns and stuff like that? That was me. It's just the way my mind works. It's just crazy. But I love it when the lectionary or just whatever your series or God's word, you get to hide behind it, you know, because this is exactly what people need to hear, you know, this, and we can't, you know, I can't preach this text without going straight through this tunnel.
Yeah.
And this tunnel is hard to say, but since the scripture says it, I have to say it. I love it when that happens. I really do.
I know.
I think that's one of my favorite things about being a preacher, about
I agree.
Called as a mouthpiece. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's come after a couple weeks in a row of indicting ourselves. You know, like you and I talked about that for the last couple of weeks. Like the last two sermons have been like, man, these are things I'm bad at, guys. Like this is stuff I need to be reminded of.
Yeah, that's true.
And then to have a chance, like there's a grace in being given a chance to reflect on our world through scripture this way that is still indicting of me, but not the same kind of way. Like, I don't know. The other thing I think about, and this is way sort of like tangential to your point of the crazy, like, hey, I'm that guy. Did you ever see a movie called The Wrong Guy?
I think I did.
It was put up by like the Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
A couple of guys from the Kids in the Hall. So Dave Foley plays this character who thinks he's gonna be convicted of murder, even though he obviously didn't do it. And the kind of the premise of the movie is the cops know he didn't do it, so they're not after him at all. But he keeps sort of getting tangled up with this guy who actually did do it, and so he ends up being in the same place the cops are all the time. So he's convinced they're trying to get him. It's a really funny movie in a bunch of places, but there's this one scene where he's in this town where everything's reversed. So the family that puts him up is this poor banking family, and this rich farmer is running the town, and it's like it's just this fantastic it's this fantastic reversal. But this story has that rich farmer, and it's like, oh, that's fantastic. It's so funny. It's such a obnoxiously absurd premise.
Yeah,
but like there are not rich farmers.
Did you ever see? It reminds me of The White Man's Burden. Did you ever see that? Where?
Oh yeah.
The race, the concept's way better than the movie.
Yeah,
but I like that idea a lot. There's just a reversing. Like, what if the Beatitudes? were made reality. You know, like that's just cool. That's a cool thought.
Yeah.
Anywho, my number 5. I just got this news story yesterday. My wife forwarded to me. It's on Vulture. I don't know if Vulture's a news thing or something. I don't know, whatever. But Jack White, for his Third Man Records, it's in recognition of his 3 millionth record being pressed. He's planning to send a space-proof turnstile up into the atmosphere. He's built this thing. He's called it the Icarus craft, and it's a record player, and it's hooked up to a high altitude balloon. It was probably in some kind of a box, but inside of it, there's a record player, and it's spinning a gold-plated 12-inch master of A Glorious Dawn, an arrangement of sound bites from astronomer and cosmologist Carl Sagan's Cosmos PBS series.
Oh my gosh.
So Jack White, and it's happening July 30th, which is coming up this Saturday. And you can look at thirdmanrecords.com. Look at, and I think they're gonna televise it or something, or you can go to one of their Third Man record locations, one in Detroit and one in Nashville. I don't think I'm gonna drive over to Nashville for it, or Detroit for it, but it comes up every once in a while. Just Jack White's creativity and like craziness, like who's more outside box than that? Like he's
yeah, you're right. Your 5th one's easily as bad as my first one.
But that's fresh, isn't that fresh? He hooks up this balloon, he hooks up this record player. It's gonna spin this record. He's gonna launch it into the stratosphere. That is awesome. I don't know.
Give me the 5 best ways you know you have too much money and time on your hands. Like
Yeah.
that's this has got to be on that list. Like, what an insane thing to do.
I dig it. I don't know.
You love it, huh?
I dig record players. I dig space. You know, I dig I dig just doing
Bring Josh.
creative, artsy things for absolutely no reason but just to do it. Like
Yeah, I get that. There's something about that. But
Yeah, the other day I was watching Jeopardy. I'm part of an older congregation now, so now I watch Jeopardy.
That's awesome. I love Jeopardy.
There was this contestant on there, and he had driven around Iceland in January. And the Alex Trebek asks him, "Why'd you do it?" And he said, "Actually, because the airfare were really cheap, and it sounded like a good story." So he flew out to Iceland and drove around Iceland.
Yeah, but neither of those things are true about this gold-plated album from Carl Sagan. What in the world, man?
I just hope it's awesome. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know why I made my 5th best. I think it's just because it's so outside the box. I love
it. It is. I love that.
I love that he's creatively thinking of cool ways to just have something to talk about. I guess. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah, it's definitely different. I'll give you that.
Do you think aliens are going to listen? I'm trying to channel your buddy Greg. Do you think aliens are going to hear this record?
I don't think that.
But sound waves without any resistance. I don't know. How far is that going to go?
That's a fair question. There's got to be a way to measure that.
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
man.
Yeah. That's. I guess it's I should have probably started with that one because
yeah,
you're kind of
probably in hindsight.
Yeah. Hindsight's 2020.
What do you know?
All right. So
boy.
We're gonna take a couple-week break. I just want to give you a heads up. Well, let's do this. Let's do this next week. But then I'm on vacation the next couple weeks.
Perfect.
So first 2 weeks in August. Well,
that sounds
actually,
good.
The second 2 week in August, because
next week is in August.
Yeah.
Perfect. So everybody listening, we're on next week, and then we'll be off for a couple of weeks. And then once kind of school gets rolling, we'll be right back into this.
Bada bing, bada boom.
We've been pretty good about having them up Friday night or Saturday morning. So that should be the pattern. Yeah.
Thanks for doing this too, by the way.
So much fun.
You do all the legwork. You're awesome.
All right, brother.
All right, I'll talk to you next week.
We'll talk to you later. All right.
Later. Bye. Did you hang up yet?